The human boy, Daniel, stood outside the alien house with his heart racing, his hands damp with nervous sweat, and his mind filled with doubts. He had never been this afraid before, not even during his hardest days on Earth. Now he was in a faraway colony, standing before the tall silver doors that shimmered faintly under the twin suns. He was here for one reason: to meet her mother. Her name was Lyra, the alien girl he loved. She was kind, gentle, and different from anyone Daniel had ever known. Her skin glowed softly with pale blue patterns that looked like flowing rivers of light. Her silver hair sparkled when she laughed, and her voice could calm him even on the darkest days. But today her voice could not help him, because Lyra had gone inside already. Leaving him alone in front of the door, Daniel swallowed hard. His stomach turned like it was filled with stones. What if her mother hated him? What if she refused to even look at him? He had heard stories. Alien families did not welcome humans easily. Some saw humans as fragile, some as unworthy, and some as dangerous. He took a shaky breath and raised his hand to knock. Before he could, the door opened on its own with a low hum. The air smelled faintly sweet, like burning herbs mixed with metal. The hallway inside glowed softly with blue lights crawling across the walls like living veins. For a moment Daniel froze, his legs heavy. But then he stepped in. Lyra turned back and gave him a small, encouraging smile. She touched his hand lightly, and her touch gave him strength. "Don't worry," she whispered. "She will understand. Give her a chance." Then she walked ahead, her long steps graceful, leaving him behind to follow. The house was quiet, too quiet. Daniel felt as if the walls were watching him. Strange paintings of stars and battles covered the walls. Some showed alien warriors holding weapons. Others showed alien families gathered under glowing trees. One painting made him stop for a second. It showed an alien mother holding a child in her arms. But the child looked almost human. His chest tightened. What did it mean? Before he could think further, Lyra led him into a large room. The ceiling was high and curved like the inside of a dome. Silver pillars lined the sides, and the floor shone like polished stone. In the center of the room stood a woman, tall and strong. Her skin glowed brighter than Lyra's, her hair longer and darker, her eyes sharp like cold glass. She was beautiful, but her beauty carried danger. "Mother," Lyra said softly. "This is Daniel, the one I told you about." The woman's gaze moved to him slowly. Her eyes narrowed, and for a long moment she said nothing. Daniel felt like he was standing naked under her stare. His throat dried up, and he almost looked away, but he forced himself to meet her eyes. He had promised himself he would not look weak. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was low but filled with power. "A human," she said, the words heavy. "So, this is what my daughter brings into my home." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to explain, but his voice betrayed him. Only a small sound came out. "Yes, I am Daniel. I care for your daughter more than anything." His words were simple, but they carried all his heart. The mother's eyes did not soften. She looked at him as if she were measuring his worth. Her silence was heavier than her words. Then suddenly she gave a small, cold smile. "We shall see." Lyra stepped closer to her mother, her voice a little firm. "He is not like others. He is different. Please, give him a chance." The mother turned away, her long robes flowing like liquid metal. "Very well," she said. "We will see if he deserves to stand here." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Her words were not an invitation, they were a warning. He knew this visit was not going to be simple. It was not a warm welcome. It was a trial, and he had already stepped into it. As they stood there, the silver door behind him closed with a deep sound, sealing the room. Daniel felt trapped, but he also felt a strange pull inside him. Something in the air whispered danger, and yet he could not leave. He was here for Lyra, and he would face whatever came. What he did not know was that this was only the beginning. The mother had her own plans, and her words, "we shall see," were not just about testing his heart. They were about something far more dangerous, something hidden deep in her past. And when Lyra left him alone with her, the real test would begin. The silver door shut with a heavy sound, and Daniel felt his chest tighten as if the air itself had turned heavy. The glowing walls dimmed slightly, and the silence in the room wrapped around him like a trap. He looked at Lyra, her soft smile giving him courage, but her mother's eyes remained cold, sharp, and full of judgment. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Only the faint hum of the house could be heard like a heartbeat hidden in the walls. Daniel shifted uneasily, his palms still damp. He wanted to say something respectful, but every word he thought of sounded weak in his mind. Before he could speak, Lyra's mother turned toward her daughter. "Go," she said firmly. "Bring tea from the garden chamber. Leave me with him." Daniel's heart skipped. He opened his mouth, but Lyra touched his arm lightly, her fingers brushing his skin. "It's fine," she whispered. "I'll be back soon." Her voice was calm, but her eyes flickered with worry. Then she walked out slowly, her silver dress flowing behind her. The moment the door closed behind her, the sound echoed in Daniel's ears like a warning bell. Now it was just him and her mother alone. She turned, her gaze piercing into him. The quiet smile on her lips was not kind. It was thin, sharp, and strange. "Finally alone," she whispered. Her words were soft but heavy, as though they carried a hidden meaning. Daniel felt a shiver run through his spine. He forced a small nod. "Yes, it's just us now," he said, though his voice was unsure. The mother stepped closer. Her height made him feel smaller, weaker. Her glowing patterns shone brighter as she approached, and the strange light reflected in her cold eyes. "You love my daughter," she said slowly, as if testing each word. Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, more than anything. I would do anything for her." Her smile widened slightly, but it did not reach her eyes. "Do you even know what that means?" she asked, her voice low and sharp. "Love is not simple here, human. In our world, love has weight. Love demands sacrifice. Love is measured in pain." Daniel swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. He wanted to answer, but his words stuck in his mouth. He had never imagined the conversation would begin this way. "I know love means to stand by her," he said finally, his voice trembling. "To protect her, to stay with her, no matter what." The mother tilted her head. Watching him carefully, her eyes flickered, not with warmth, but with something else, something darker. "Good words," she said, "but words are wind. I want to see if your heart is stronger than your body." She stepped even closer, so close that Daniel could feel the strange warmth radiating from her. "Do you fear me?" she asked suddenly, her voice almost a hiss. Daniel froze. His heart thumped loudly. He could feel sweat sliding down his back. Every instinct told him to step away, to nod, to admit his fear. But something inside him pushed against it. He clenched his fists lightly and whispered, "Yes, I fear you, but I will not run." For the first time, her eyes blinked in surprise. The silence stretched. Then slowly, very slowly, she gave a small laugh. It was not soft or gentle. It was sharp like broken glass. "Brave words, human. But bravery fades when tested." She moved away and walked toward a tall silver shelf. Her fingers traced across strange objects, crystals, knives, and old war medals. She picked up one small crystal sphere, holding it up to the light. The glow reflected across the room, casting shadows on Daniel's face. "Do you know why I do not trust humans?" she asked suddenly, her voice no longer sharp but heavy. "During the war, a human promised me loyalty. He swore he would fight beside me. He swore he would protect my people, but when the moment came, he ran. He left us to die. I lost my kin that day. I lost trust that day." Daniel's heart ached at her words. He could see the pain hidden in her voice. But he also felt her anger pressing against him. He understood now. This was not only about him, it was about her past. He was paying for someone else's betrayal. Still, he did not step back. He looked at her firmly, his voice shaking but honest. "I am not him," he said. "I will never run. Not from Lyra, not from you, no matter what you think of me." The mother turned her face toward him. Her eyes burned, but deep inside, there was a flicker of something else. Conflict, pain, maybe even doubt. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she set the crystal sphere down and walked back toward him. She stopped only a few steps away, her gaze locked on his. "We shall see," she whispered again, the same words she had spoken earlier. But this time they carried even more weight. The door behind them remained closed. The silence pressed harder. Daniel knew this was not just a meeting anymore. This was a test, a trial, and every second he stood there was another step deeper into the unknown. He did not know what she would ask next, or what she would demand, but one thing was clear: he could not fail. If he failed, he would lose Lyra, and maybe even his life. And the mother's thin smile told him his trial had only just begun. Daniel stood frozen in the center of the glowing room. His heart pounded so loudly he thought she might hear it. The alien mother circled him slowly, her steps light, almost silent, yet heavy with power. Every move she made felt like a blade, slicing the air. "You say you love her," she said at last, her voice echoing against the tall silver walls. "But love is not just a word. Love must survive fire. Love must survive pain. If your love is weak, it will break. If it breaks, you will break with it." Daniel swallowed, his throat dry. He wanted to tell her he already knew love was hard. He wanted to say he had seen suffering before, that he had struggled through a lonely life back on Earth. But the words stayed inside him because he could feel this was not a time for excuses. This was something more, a trial. The mother stopped in front of him, her glowing eyes like cold flames. She raised her hand slowly, and a long, thin blade appeared from her sleeve. It shimmered with a strange blue fire. Daniel stiffened, instinct telling him to step back, but he forced himself to stay still. "Do not fear," she said, her voice strangely calm. "I will not kill you, not yet. This is not about death, it is about truth." She lifted the blade, and with a swift motion she cut the air close to his cheek, so close he could feel the heat. Daniel flinched but did not move away. The sharp sound of the blade made his heart race. She smiled faintly. "Good. You do not run so quickly." Then she lowered the blade and pointed it to his chest. "Tell me, human, would you bleed for her? Would you suffer for her smile? Would you give your life to keep her safe?" Daniel's hands trembled at his sides. His body screamed to move, to push the blade away. But his heart was louder. "Yes," he whispered. "I would, without question, without regret." Her eyes narrowed as if trying to see if his words were lies. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she pulled the blade back and slipped it away. But her test was not over. She walked to the far wall and touched one of the glowing panels. The wall shifted, opening into a smaller chamber. The smell of herbs and burning stone rushed out, and the room glowed red like fire. She gestured for him to follow. "Come. If you speak the truth, then step into my chamber of memories." Daniel hesitated. The red glow looked dangerous, but he could not turn back now. He followed her inside. The room was smaller, circular, with a pit of glowing stones in the middle. The air was hot and thick, making it hard to breathe. On the high walls hung weapons, bones, and broken pieces of armor. "This," she said softly, "is where I test those who come before me. Warriors, leaders, liars, and cowards. All revealed their truth here. You will do the same." She stepped to the pit and pulled out a stone that glowed like burning coal. Then she turned to him, her face unreadable. "Hold it," she commanded. "If you truly love my daughter, you will not let it go." Daniel froze. The stone burned with heat even from a distance. His hands tingled just looking at it. If I hold it, it will hurt, he whispered. Of course, she said coldly. Love hurts, does it not? He looked at the stone, then at her eyes. He thought of Lyra's smile, her soft laugh, the way her hand felt in his. He thought of how lonely he had been before she came into his life and how full his heart felt now. Slowly, with shaking hands, he reached out and took the stone. The heat was instant, searing. His skin screamed with pain, his teeth clenched as he almost cried out. But he held it tight, refusing to drop it. His vision blurred, his arms shook, his knees almost buckled, yet he kept holding, his lips whispering through clenched teeth. For her, I will hold it, for her. The mother watched, her face still like stone, her eyes narrowed, but for the first time, something flickered inside them. Not coldness, not anger, but something else. Recognition. Minutes passed, or maybe only seconds. Time lost its meaning. Finally, she stepped forward and gently took the stone from his hands. The moment she pulled it away, Daniel's palms burned red. He gasped for air, his body weak, but his eyes still steady. He had not let go. The mother held the stone for a moment, then set it back into the pit. Her voice was softer now, though still guarded. Strange, she whispered. You did not run, you did not cry. You endured. Daniel straightened even though his hands trembled with pain. Because she is worth it, he said simply. His words were plain, but they carried the weight of his heart. The mother looked at him for a long moment, her sharp eyes studying every inch of him. Then she turned away, hiding the small flicker of emotion on her face. Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought, she said quietly, but her voice carried no final answer, only more mystery. Daniel stood in silence, his hands throbbing, his chest heavy. He had survived her test, but he knew this was not the end. The trial was not over. This was only the first step, and deep in her eyes he could see it. Another test was waiting, a test even harder than this one. Daniel's hand still throbbed with pain from the glowing stone. His skin was red, but his heart burned, brighter with determination. He had passed her first test, yet he could feel the alien mother's eyes still judging him, her silence pressed against him like a heavy wall. At last, she turned and walked to the far side of the chamber. Her long robes brushed the glowing floor as she moved. She touched the wall, and suddenly part of it shifted open, revealing another room beyond. It was darker, cooler, and filled with shelves of strange objects. Come, she said without looking back. Her voice was softer now, but carried weight. If you wish to understand me, if you wish to remain with my daughter, you must see what I have hidden. Daniel followed, his chest tight with both fear and curiosity. The new room felt different, not like the polished halls of her house, but like a place of memory. The shelves were crowded with old relics, broken weapons, faded flags, shards of crystal and small carvings. Each one glowed faintly, as if holding a piece of life inside. The mother picked up a small metal charm from one shelf. It looked old, human-made. Daniel froze. His eyes widened as she held it out to him. Do you know what this is? She asked. Daniel shook his head slowly. No, but it looks human. Her eyes narrowed and her voice lowered. It belonged to a man once, a human soldier. He swore to me he would fight by my side. He swore he would protect our village. He gave me this as a sign of his promise. I trusted him. Her hand trembled as she held the charm. For the first time, Daniel saw something in her eyes, pain, deep and sharp, hidden beneath years of strength. What happened? Daniel asked softly. She looked at the charm for a long moment before answering. Her voice cracked, though only slightly. When the war came, when the flames burned our homes and the enemy broke our gates, he ran. He did not fight. He fled into the night he left me. He left us all. Because of him, I lost my people, my family, my kin. Her hand clenched tight around the charm. Her glowing patterns pulsed brighter with her anger. Daniel felt the weight of her grief pressing into him. He wanted to speak, but no words seemed enough. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. I know I cannot erase what he did. But I am not him. I would never leave Lyra. Never leave you. Her sharp gaze flicked to him, searching his face as if digging for lies. After a long silence, she turned back to the shelves and placed the charm down carefully. Her voice lowered again, almost, to a whisper. Do you understand now why I cannot trust so easily? A human once promised me the stars but gave me only ashes. When I look at you, I see his face in the shadows. I see his betrayal. Daniel stepped closer, though his heart pounded in fear. Then test me again. Give me any trial. I will not. Be him, I will not run. His voice shook, but his words were strong. The mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She studied him carefully, then slowly walked to another shelf. From it, she took a piece of broken glass encased in silver. The edges glowed faintly with red. This, she said, was once a window to our home dome. When it shattered, the air rushed out. I watched children cling to their mothers. I watched warriors suffocate. Do you know who was supposed to protect that dome? Daniel's chest tightened. He already knew the answer. The human soldier, he whispered. She nodded sharply, her jaw tight. Yes. He swore he would stand at the dome. But when the moment came, he was gone. And I buried my people in the dust of broken glass. Daniel closed his eyes. His heart ached. He could almost see the images she described, the horror, the betrayal. He wanted to reach out to her, but he knew she would not accept comfort from him. Not yet. Opening his eyes again, he said quietly, You live with scars of his betrayal, but scars also mean survival. You endured. You carried that pain and still stood strong. I can never undo what he did, but I can prove by my actions that I am not him. The mother froze for a moment, her eyes flickering. For the first time, her expression softened slightly, not warm, but no longer as cold. Your words are bold, human, she said. But boldness is not enough. Prove it not with speeches, but with sacrifice. Daniel's heart beat faster. Then tell me how, he said firmly. Tell me what I must do. She stepped closer, her eyes sharp again, but hiding a small glimmer of conflict. I will, she said softly, but not yet. First you must see all of me, not just the warrior, not just the mother, but the one who was broken. With that, she turned to the last shelf, where a single item lay, a small carved figure of a child with glowing eyes. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. This was my son, she whispered. He died because of that betrayal. He was younger than Lyra. His laughter still echoes in my dreams, but it was stolen by human weakness. Her voice broke slightly. Her glowing skin flickered like fading light. Daniel's throat tightened. He felt tears press against his eyes. I cannot bring him back, he whispered. But I swear I will never let Lyra face the same fate, even if it costs me my life. The mother turned her face to him. Her eyes burned with grief and anger, but also with something else, something hidden. Maybe hope, maybe doubt, maybe both. You speak well, she said slowly. But words are dust, actions are stone. And soon, you will face a choice where words will not save you. Daniel stood still, his heart heavy. He knew she was right. The real test had not yet come, and as her hand closed around the small figure of her son, Daniel realized that her past was not just a story. It was a shadow that now stretched over him. The chamber felt heavy with silence after her words. Daniel's heart still ached from the story of her son. He could almost see the boy's small figure carved in the glowing statue. It burned into his mind, reminding him that this mother's anger was not without reason. She had lost everything once, and now she feared losing again. The mother placed the carved figure gently back on the shelf. Her hand lingered on it for a moment. Then she turned, her glowing eyes fixed on Daniel once more. This time her gaze was different. Not only cold judgment, but a storm of pain and doubt. You say you will never run, she said slowly. But men always say such words. They speak of honor, They speak of love. Yet when the fire comes, they flee. I will not risk my daughter on words alone, so I will give you a choice. Daniel stiffened, his breath caught in his throat. A choice? His palms were still raw from the burning stone, his body tired, but his spirit stood strong. He lifted his chin and whispered, "What choice?" The mother walked to the center of the room. Her long robe brushed the ground like liquid silver. She raised her hand, and with a low hum the floor shifted. Two panels slid open, revealing two objects resting on pedestals. One was a dagger with a curved blade glowing faint blue. The other was a small vial filled with dark liquid, swirling slowly as if alive. "Here is your trial," she said firmly. "If you wish to prove your devotion to my daughter, you must choose one, the blade or the vial." Daniel stared, his chest tightening. He could feel the power radiating from both. His voice trembled as he asked, "What do they mean?" The mother's eyes locked on his. "The blade represents sacrifice of the body. You will bleed to prove your strength. You will take the cut and show me you will not fall when hurt. The vial represents sacrifice of the spirit. You will drink it and face the visions it brings. Your mind may break or it may endure. Both are pain, both are truth. Choose." Daniel's stomach turned. Neither choice was safe. The blade would hurt him physically, maybe scar him. The vial could twist his mind, perhaps even destroy it. But he knew this was not about the pain alone. It was about what he valued more, his body or his will. For a long moment he stared at the two objects. His thoughts raced. If he chose the blade, he would show her he was strong enough to bleed. If he chose the vial, he would show her he was strong enough to face nightmares. Which would she respect more? Which would prove his love for Lyra? His breath grew shallow, his hands trembled. He looked at the mother, but her face was unreadable. She gave no hint, no guidance. Her silence told him this was not about what she wanted. It was about what he would dare. Finally, Daniel took a deep breath, his voice steady though his body shook. "I will not run from pain. I will not run from fear. Whichever I choose, it will not break me." He stepped forward, his hand hovering between the two. The glowing blue blade shimmered, tempting him with the simple truth of blood. The dark swirling liquid called to him with the unknown. Daniel's heart pounded louder. He thought of Lyra's smile, her laugh, her gentle touch. He thought of how she had looked at him with hope when she left him alone with her mother. Slowly, his hand lowered, but not to the blade. He picked up the vial. The mother's eyes narrowed. In surprise, for the first time, her voice wavered slightly. "You choose the spirit, not the flesh?" Daniel held the vial tightly, the dark liquid swirling like a storm inside glass. "My body can bleed and heal," he said softly. "But my mind, my heart, that is what I give to her. That is what must never break. If I lose that, I lose everything." The mother studied him for a long time. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but her eyes glowed brighter. "Very well," she whispered. "Then drink, and let the shadows decide if you are worthy." Daniel uncorked the vial. The smell was sharp, bitter, almost poisonous. His stomach twisted, but he did not hesitate. He raised it to his lips and drank. The liquid was cold, like ice crawling down his throat. His chest burned, his vision blurred, his knees buckled as he dropped to the floor. The mother watched silently, her face still. Her voice was low as she whispered, "Now we see the truth." Daniel gasped, clutching his chest. The world around him began to fade. The glowing shelves blurred. The silver walls vanished. Darkness closed in around him. 1,000 whispers filled his ears, pulling him deeper. And then he was no longer in the room. He was standing in a field of shadows, alone. His body shook, his breath ragged. He could hear voices calling his name, familiar voices but filled with pain. He looked around desperately, and in the distance he saw her, Lyra, standing in the dark, her eyes full of tears, reaching out to him. But between them rose walls of fire, chains of smoke twisting in the air. Daniel stumbled forward, reaching out. His mind screamed, his heart burned. The trial had begun, and he knew he might not survive it, but he would not stop. Not when she was calling to him, not when love demanded he walk through the fire. Daniel's body felt heavy as the liquid dragged him deeper into the visions. His chest rose and fell quickly, his breath sharp. The world around him had become a place of shadows and fire, and nothing felt real anymore. His mind screamed that it was only a test, but his heart told him this was life and death before him. The flames twisted higher, blocking his path. On the other side stood Lyra, her glowing silver hair dimmed by smoke, her eyes filled with tears. She reached out with trembling hands. "Daniel, please don't leave me." Her voice echoed, weak and broken. Daniel's heart cracked at the sound. He tried to push forward, but the fire roared, burning hot. The heat was not only on his skin, it was inside his mind, whispering doubts. "You cannot save her. You are weak. You will fail her like the human who failed before." The whispers grew louder. They sounded like the mother's voice, cold and sharp, then like the voices of strangers laughing, mocking. His knees shook, his hands trembled. For a moment he felt the weight of despair, but then he closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe. He remembered Lyra's smile, her laugh, the gentle way she touched his hand when he was afraid. He remembered the lonely days before she came into his life, the emptiness that had consumed him, and he whispered, "No, I will not fail her. I will not run." When he opened his eyes again, he stepped forward into the fire. The heat seared his skin. His lungs felt like they would burst. Pain shot through him, but he did not stop. Each step forward was agony, but each step was proof of his love. The fire screamed around him, but he pushed through. His arms reached out. His legs carried him despite the burning. Finally, he stumbled through the flames and fell onto the ground, gasping. His clothes were torn. His skin scorched, but he was alive. When he looked up, he saw Lyra kneeling beside him, her eyes wide with worry. Her hands touched his face, soft and cool against his burns. "You came," she whispered. "You didn't let go." Daniel tried to smile, though his lips trembled. "I told you I would never leave you." But then, her form flickered like smoke and vanished. His chest tightened in panic. He spun around, and the shadows twisted again. This time he saw something different. The boy, the small carved figure he had seen earlier, Lyra's brother. He stood there, his glowing eyes sad, his tiny hands holding the broken glass piece from the dome. "Why should you live with her?" The child's voice whispered, soft but heavy. "When I had to die?" Daniel froze. His throat closed. His heart ached with guilt that was not even his own. I cannot change what happened to you," he whispered, his voice shaking. "But I can make sure it never happens again. I can protect her. I can honor you by never letting her feel the same loss." The child stared for a long moment. Then slowly, he let go of the glass shard. It fell to the ground and melted into the shadows. His figure faded and the darkness grew quieter. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. His body shook with exhaustion, but his heart felt stronger. The visions were not only pain, they were questions. They wanted to know if his love could endure guilt, fear, and sacrifice. As the last of the shadows faded, Daniel felt the floor beneath him shift. The fire dimmed. The whispers fell silent. Slowly, the world of visions melted away, and he opened his eyes back in the chamber. He was lying on the cold stone floor. His body, drenched in sweat, his chest rose and fell heavily. His hands trembled, but he was alive. His heart still beat steady and strong. The mother stood over him, her arms crossed, her glowing eyes sharp but unreadable. For a long moment, she said nothing. She only studied him, as if weighing his soul. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "You walked through the fire, you faced the ghosts, you did not run, not even when death whispered in your ear." She paused, her lips pressed tightly. "Few have endured the vile's visions, human, but you did." Daniel tried to push himself up, his muscles weak. He leaned against the wall, his breath ragged, but he forced himself to look at her. "I told you," he said softly, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I will never run, not from pain, not from fear, not from her." For the first time, her face softened. It was not a smile, Not warmth, but something deeper. Her eyes carried sorrow, but also a small flicker of respect. She stepped closer, kneeling down so her gaze met his. "You are stubborn," she said quietly. "Perhaps too stubborn. But maybe that is what she needs." Her hand hovered for a moment, then gently touched his burned arm. Her touch was cool, soothing. The glowing patterns on her skin dimmed slightly, as if her anger had lessened. "You may yet be worthy," she whispered. "But know this. Love is not only about trials. It is about what you choose when the moment comes. And that moment will come soon." Daniel nodded weakly, his heart steady despite his pain. He did not know what moment she spoke of, but he was ready. He had proven his spirit. He had proven his love. The mother stood again, her tall figure casting a long shadow over him. She turned toward the door, her voice firm but softer than before. "Rest now, human. Tomorrow, you will face your final truth." Daniel leaned back against the cold wall, his body broken but his heart strong. He closed his eyes, whispering softly to himself, "For her, I will face anything." And though the chamber was silent, he felt the faintest sense that the mother's heart, long locked away by grief and betrayal, had cracked open just a little. Night inside the alien house was long and heavy. Daniel lay on the cold floor, his body weak, his hands still trembling from the trial, but his heart steady. He had faced fire, shadows, and grief that was not his own. He had seen the pain of the past and had walked through it, refusing to break. When morning light slipped through the crystal windows, Daniel pushed himself to stand. His body ached with every movement, but he refused to look weak. He knew this day would decide everything, whether he was accepted or cast out forever. The door slid open with a soft hum, and Lyra stepped in. Her silver hair shimmered like liquid light, her eyes wide with worry. She ran to him and touched his face gently. "Daniel, what happened? You look broken." He tried to smile, though his lips were dry. "Your mother tested me," he whispered. "But I didn't run." Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged him tightly, whispering against his shoulder, "I knew you wouldn't. I knew you'd prove yourself." Before he could answer, a shadow filled the doorway. The mother entered, tall and silent, her glowing skin dimmed slightly as if her power was calmer now. Her gaze swept over them, her daughter's arms around. A battered human, and she stopped. For a long time, no one spoke. Daniel's breath caught. He wanted to defend himself, to beg for her acceptance, but something in her eyes stopped him. They were not as cold as before, not as sharp. There was pain still, but behind it, a new light flickered. Finally, she stepped forward, her voice low but steady. "You walked through fire, you faced shadows, you did not run, and still you stand here, weak but unbroken." She paused, her gaze sharp again. "I cannot erase the scars of my past, I cannot forget betrayal, but I cannot deny what I have seen." Lyra held her breath, her hands tightening on Daniel's arm. Her eyes searched her mother's face desperately. The mother looked at her daughter, then at Daniel. Then with a long exhale, she whispered words Daniel would never forget. "Perhaps you are worthy of her." Daniel's chest filled with relief, but he did not speak. His throat closed, his heart heavy with emotion. Instead, he bowed his head slightly, showing respect. He knew her words were not easy, they were not soft, but they carried weight. They were the first cracks in the wall she had built around her heart. Lyra's eyes filled with tears of joy. She hugged her mother tightly, whispering, "Thank you, thank you." The mother did not hug back at first. Her arms stayed stiff at her sides, but slowly, after a long moment, she raised one hand and rested it lightly on her daughter's shoulder. Her touch was gentle, her expression unreadable. When she looked at Daniel again, her voice turned sharp once more, though not cruel. "Do not mistake my acceptance for trust. Trust is not given. It is built stone by stone. Do not break it, human. If you ever bring her pain, if you ever fail, her I will destroy you." Daniel met her gaze. his eyes steady. "I understand," he said softly, "and I swear I will never give you reason to." The silence stretched between them, heavy, but no longer hostile. The mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she gave a single, small nod. It was not warmth, not joy, but it was something more powerful. It was permission. The family's silence filled the chamber like music. No cheers, no laughter, just the weight of acceptance, fragile but real. Later, when Daniel and Lyra stepped outside into the light of the twin suns, Daniel felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. The air smelled sweet again, the sky wide and endless above them. Lyra walked close beside him, her hand slipping into his. "You faced her," she whispered, "and you didn't break. Do you know what that means?" Daniel smiled faintly, his voice rough but steady. "It means she doesn't see me as a stranger anymore." Lyra leaned her head against his shoulder. "It means she sees you as part of us." Daniel's heart swelled. For so long he had feared rejection, feared that nothing he did would be enough. But he had faced her tests, endured her grief, and now he had a place. Not just beside Lyra, but in her family's world. Behind them, at the doorway, the mother stood watching, her arms crossed, her eyes still sharp but her lips curved into the faintest, almost invisible smile. She did not speak. She did not call them back. She only stood in silence, letting them walk forward together. Her acceptance was not loud, not full of words. It was a quiet nod, a soft flicker of light in her eyes. It was silence, but it was enough. Daniel knew the road ahead would not be easy. He knew more trials would come, more doubts, more fears. But for the first time, he felt he had a place. He had faced her past, endured her test, and earned her silent acceptance. And as he held Lyra's hand, feeling her warmth against him, he whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning."